Hello and welcome to this short tutorial on how to get orthophotos from Cetopo into ArchiCAD. I have this little area here in Sweden, so let's go have a look at the ArchiCAD detail template here. As you can see, there is now an orthophoto setting here, so make sure to have that enabled, whichever template you want to use for this tutorial. Other than that, there shouldn't be anything special, so just click download. And there we go, we have our zip file. Open the zip file and extract it somewhere. That should give us a CTP file, a text file, and a PNG. The PNG is the orthophoto, and you can see that it is looking a bit strange, but this will make sense later. The orthophoto guide file you should open right now, because that contains information about how large the orthophoto is, and we're going to need this to get the orthophoto correctly aligned in ArchiCAD. So without further ado, let's go to ArchiCAD and import the CTP file we just downloaded. And now make sure you use one of the first two options here, as the third or fourth options will not necessarily work with the orthophoto trick that is being used here, as we need the terrain to become centered around the origin here, otherwise it will not work. Here we go, we have our terrain and the buildings, and if we go to 3D view, we will have this grass field here with the buildings. In order to get the orthophoto texture now, we should go to the surfaces menu, and you can find that by clicking this paintbrush icon here. And if you don't have this paintbrush icon here, you can get it showing by enabling the 3D visualization toolbar. So go ahead and create a new surface here. I'm going to call this one orthophoto. And we're going to change this texture to the orthophoto image. If you click add there and navigate to the directory here and select this strange looking orthophoto, there we go, we have that in our embedded library now. You can actually see that the orthophoto is quite massive here, so these are quite heavy, and if you plan on taking a large area, then the file will be quite large as well. Alright. Next, we need the text file we just included or opened, extracted, and here we have horizontal size. So let's start with that one. It says 2650 pixels, and then these two values on how large the image is in real coordinates. So let's take this one first, and you don't need the decimals really, as this image, this is already in millimeters, so it's quite detailed enough. And as you paste it there, actually make sure you check original proportion, so you will get then the correct vertical value there immediately, and you don't have to copy paste it unnecessarily here. But the angle value we will need, because the orthophotos are in the national coordinate system usually, and you would perhaps want to download in another coordinate system. So we need to rotate the texture a little bit. And that's it. Now we have our orthophoto ready. So let's click OK, and that will create the texture. Now in order to apply the texture onto the terrain, we'll just go to here from surface and just select orthophoto from the list. And there you go. Now we have a perfectly aligned orthophoto texture. If you check out one of the buildings here, you can see that it's actually quite nicely aligning with the building footprints and the roads as well. And of course the water and everything else also is correctly aligned here. So that's it. That's how you get an orthophoto texture into ArchiCAD from Cetopo. And just in case, if your texture doesn't look correctly aligned, it's most likely due to incorrect values in these fields or forgetting to insert the rotation here. Also, if you download separate models, then like if you download one model and then another model that contains the texture, then the texture is not necessarily going to work with the other model as well. So make sure you get your orthophoto from the same file that you downloaded the terrain with. One interesting feature of the ArchiCAD orthophoto is that it's not actually bound to the terrain in any way, but it's positioned correctly now in model space or in this coordinate system here. So that means that we can actually quite easily use it also for the buildings here. So if we just go select one building here, for example this one, and change its material to orthophoto, just like we did for the terrain. And if we also here apply changes to custom when it prompts, we can see that you actually get the building quite nicely with the orthophoto as well. But the walls, of course, in this case look a little bit strange because, of course, they shouldn't be painted with orthophoto. And for that reason, it's actually quite convenient that Cetopo uses this brick wall and black paint roof for these buildings, because that allows us to use the surface painter here, which opens, in my case opens it here, but it might open as a separate window as well. So it's this other paintbrush icon up here. And this allows us actually to change all of the black roofs to be orthophotos. And we can do that by using this eyedropper button here and clicking on one of the roof parts that will highlight the paint that Cetopo uses for the roofs. And right-clicking that material and select all elements will select all of the buildings. And now you can actually click this orthophoto texture here and then go to the right pane over here and find the paint one. And if you now just click on it, that will actually override all of the black paints to be orthophotos instead. So that's actually a really quick way to get the pretty nice roofs in ArchiCAD. And you can actually see that the Cetopo 3D buildings match quite nicely with the orthophoto. And it's also good to know that the orthophoto is of course not perfect either. So even though it looks here that there is some discrepancy, it might just be because of the orthophoto not being perfectly aligned. But in this case it actually looks quite nice. All right, but that's all for today, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and also that it gets you started faster with this new feature. Thanks.